Welcome to the Growing Relationships podcast. I'm your co-host Lia, somatic feminine leadership coach and trauma reprocessing facilitator.
And my name is Fredrik. I work with leadership development. I'm also the founder of the men's group Transformation Within.
And in these conversations, we will explore how to make sense of yourself and your partner in the dance of romantic relationships.
Hi Lia, good to see you again.
Red, hi. It's good to see you too. We're finally here.
Yes, so we decided to do an episode on relationships because it's such a fascinating topic.
Yeah, it's like there was so many people talk about relationships, and it's still alive, and it's still a big, huge topic that I think will never end.
Yeah, that's true. The more I experience it, being married for over 20 years now, I guess, the more I study the topic and the more I help my clients on this topic, the more fascinated I become. It's ever expanding and there's so much depth to it as well. So let's dive in. Where do you think we should start?
I was just thinking about just to exchange, because we had so many nourishing conversations before about relationships. This is how we actually, just to give an update to the listeners, this is how we came up with this idea. Maybe we should record our conversations and nurture others. Maybe that might be helpful for people, who knows. So here we are. And I was thinking to talk maybe about why relationships is such a fascinating topic. It's still alive, it's still important, even crucial, I would say. Then maybe to touch on romantic relationships, because romantic relationships are almost the most important relationships in our lives, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then if we have time, maybe we can talk about how do you see, how I see, exchange around what's the purpose of relationships? Why do we even need, especially romantic relationships?
Maybe we can start there, because I think that's an interesting angle to it. Why do we need relationships at all? And the first thought that comes to mind is because we only know who we are in relationship to others.
Right.
And we need to reflect how we show up back to ourselves in others in order to understand how we show up, and then hopefully then have the curiosity to understand, why do I show up like this? What are the stories I have about myself behind how I show up? Are those stories true? Are there some stories more, some stories that doesn't serve me that I need to investigate and maybe upgrade or abolish?
Yeah, I love that. Yes, and also because we're just social beings and we might be enlightened on the top of the mountain. But when we come into relating, this is when we can see really and truly how integrated is that awakening, so to say, and how healed we are. And right. Exactly. So I love the joke that you always say about the monks. Maybe you can say the joke.
Yeah, they say there are two ways to become enlightened. One is to enter the monastery, and the other is to get married. And the monks and nuns know they've chosen the easy path. And I think there's so much truth to this, because there is something about grinding against another person for years, where you are forced to call out yourself in your own bullshit to make it work.
Yeah, totally. I remember myself, like, so many times I was in between relationships, so to say, single. And I thought, oh my God, I healed. I'm so healed. I'm so ready. And then, bam, I was in the middle of the, shit hits the fan. Sorry for my words. And then I realized that actually real evolving happens in the relationships itself, in relating with people. And just to use that as a mirror, where is a part of me that still needs elevating. I don't really like the word healing, but more like elevation, growth.
And it's an area where it could happen, but it requires both parties to be willing to explore it. I think first of all, it takes a lot of humility first to realize that you are not perfect. I'm actually quite a difficult person to be with. All of us are to some degree. And then secondly, the curiosity to see, hey, interesting, why is that? And then we go back to the stories we have created about ourselves. Many of them, from childhood, our first impression of dynamics and our first exposure to love in the way it was expressed, how I grew up. And then we bring that with us into our relationships. Because somehow, even if it's dysfunctional, we seek familiarity in our partner.
Yeah, totally. It reminds me of Imago concept, maybe for the listeners as well. There is a psychotherapist, Henrik Harvey, and he wrote a bunch of books about exactly this.
Okay.
Getting the love you want, keeping the love you find, and a few other books on psychology on love. And he explains very beautifully how we choose actually partners. Our brain chooses partners that brings us the familiarity, and that can be both ways. That can be in a good way, but also because we choose good qualities and also not so good qualities from our caregivers. And the bad side of this is that we keep perpetuating the wounding, the scenarios of not being fully loved as we were not as children. And just bring awareness into that for me was mind-blowing to bring light into that and realize that, oh my God, I'm choosing partners based on that, and to choose to show up differently, but also to maybe be curious about different type of men, let's say. That maybe they sound boring because, or like boring at first sight because it's just not familiar for my brain, for my nervous system.
Yeah. So I just want to circle back to what you said about curiosity and doing your own work. And I think that can be quite challenging, especially if one partner is doing the work and the other partner is not. When I went into a relationship, my idealization of a relationship was that you and your partner should be like a double helix, intertwined throughout life. But the more experience I have in a relationship, the more I realize that maybe it's actually the two strands are separate and they have to make the upward motion individually and then at some times intertwine. You have to fuel your own journey to become whole, if you will. And then you can amplify it with your partner. But this idea that we have been fed in Western society mostly about romantic love, I think has been very dangerous for us. Because if you remember, or if you're familiar with Alain de Botton, he writes and talks very nicely about love and relationships. And I can't remember the name now, but he refers to a German philosopher who said that the most dangerous American ever is Walt Disney.
Alain de Botton.
Yeah, well, Alain de Botton refers to him, to a German philosopher who said this.
Right, yeah.
And I don't remember the name of the German philosopher now, but the most dangerous man ever is Walt Disney. Because he has fed us this idea of that somewhere out there is your perfect match, the one. And if you can only go out and find the one, then you live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And that also makes us project our holes onto the other and expecting them to fulfill it. And that's a recipe for a very short relationship, or at least a very unhappy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it brings us to this concept of codependency. Yeah. But also there is dependency, there's independency and interdependency. So I think what you are referring to is pretty much the interdependency. It means I take care of my nervous system, you take care of your nervous system, and in the interdependency, we, from that place of I care about my own nervous system, I care about your nervous system as well. But it's not giving the ownership of the responsibility, basically, put it on you solely. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And I think I can see this playing out around me to some degree. You know, I'm 50 now, so I've seen relationships around me falling apart. And I think I've noticed a pattern in that, you know, they separate and then they go out and find a new partner after a while. And then the first year or two with this new partner, everything is amazing and so much better than the relationship they just left. But then after a while, the same conflicts that they had with their previous partner starts popping up again. They're fighting about the same things, frustrated about the same things, because they haven't done their own work to heal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And how do you think relationships mirror what we still have to work in ourselves? In what ways this happens?
You know, when in any relationship, whether that's romantic or professional, when you feel triggered by another person, that is saying more about you than the person. So I think then having the curiosity and the humility to think, interesting. When Lia says this to me, I can feel frustration bubbling up inside of me. I wonder what story about myself she's touching that makes me angry, frustrated, or whatever it is. Why the romantic relationship is such a wonderful arena for exploring this, because nothing matters more than those relationships. Yeah. And that's what I mean with what I said before, that in a long-term relationship, you are forced to call yourself out in your own bullshit.
Yeah, and I think we can even take it a step further and say, when I found the story that I tell about myself, about the world, about the other one, maybe, then maybe to take that curiosity towards the other. Like, now that I know the narrative in my psyche, I'm curious what's going on for the other person.
Yeah.
I remember I was in a women's embodiment 9-month program. And I had been holding a very deep belief about women not wanting me around. So I'm getting very vulnerable and private here, but I feel comfortable with this. And at some point we were sharing our beliefs about what is the occurring reality for ourselves right now, for us. And it was just mind-blowing, I swear, to hear other women's beliefs and how I was projecting my belief on those women, exactly those women who were holding the same belief, and how we were stuck in this fear of getting closer to each other, like even talking to each other or letting each other in, because both of us were holding this belief that, she doesn't want me around. And honestly, when I saw that, it was like seeing a picture from the above, two people being in their fears, and not making a step towards the other. And it was mind-blowing. So,
and with this insight, how has your relationship to women evolved from there?
Since then, I'm just extending that curiosity on other women. Like, I wonder what she might be projecting right now. Like, if my story is that she is avoiding me, she doesn't like me, what if she if I have the chance, I can ask her if we are in a safe container and it's appropriate. But I can just also imagine and ask myself and say, okay, maybe she's just like me, just like me, afraid of getting closer or making a step towards me. And this changes everything, honestly. Because sometimes when you do that step and you see how reality around you changes, is wow, I could do that. I had no idea I can do that, And then this is how I think our beliefs can also rewire somehow when we stop in that moment and choose something else and say, what if I usually behave like this? Let's say I just pull away, withdraw, I don't know, whatever pattern is there. But what if in this case I would do something crazy, something different than I usually do? And when I do that, and when I see the reality changing, this is very powerful.
It makes me think of a Buddhist saying that don't believe everything you think. And I think that's a good thing to live by, especially in relationships, because you see the surface of something, a reaction, words, whatever, but you don't know what's going on behind that. Mm-hmm. So try to meet all of this with compassion for the other person. You know if they had a bad day, if something dramatic has happened, if they had childhood trauma they're playing out because you did something that triggered them, etc. So I try to approach these situations that are becoming a little bit tense with a lot of compassion, be curious about, wonder what's going on for them right now. And at the same time, it's about myself. How do I show up to this tension?
Yeah.
Am I facilitating a reconciliation of this relationship? Or do I have my own defenses that may not help our relationship?
Yeah, we can lead, right? And it doesn't mean that we can tolerate bad behavior, dysfunctional behavior. I don't like the word toxic, more like dysfunctional. Of course, the other one needs to do their work, but someone needs to do that step, lead the way.
But there's no opposition in being curious, receptive, compassionate on one side, and then boundaries on the other side. You can set strong boundaries, but within, or unless the boundaries are crossed, you can be fully open and present. And if they are crossed, you can protect them in a compassionate way. Oh,
wow. I'm just, thinking boundaries can be another topic that we can talk about, because there's so much to say about boundaries. And I love the topic of boundaries, so I can write that down.
Sure.
I was just thinking, going back to mirrors, how relationships mirror, like every type of relationships, but especially romantic, because the romantic are the closer one to us, because it brings us so close to the relationship to our caregivers, right? And I think it shows us where we need to up level, but also this is like kind of shadow, but also there is golden shadow as well. It is when we connect to parts of ourselves through parts of the other. Let's say you choose a partner who's joyful, creative, like everything that's complementary to you, everything that you didn't bring to the light yet, maybe, and you fall in love with those parts in that partner because you didn't develop them, cultivate them in you.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also fascinating.
In the dance of a relationship, your partner can help you unlock suppressed talents inside yourself. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
And that also makes me think of the 5 love languages. About unlocking 5 love languages. If you're familiar with them, Gary Chapman. Yeah. So it's 5 universal love languages. And the thing is that we want to receive love the same way we give love. And they are physical touch, acts of service, quality time, words of affirmations, and gifts. And what I was thinking about was this, that I heard an interesting interpretation of it recently, where they said that your primary love language is the love that you could not get enough of in your upbringing.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So there you have this interesting dynamic then of you seek familiarity in your romantic partner, meaning maybe somebody that mimics not expressing the type of love that you want. At the same time, that's a suppressed, or that is a need that is very deep to you. So you will at some point start requesting it, and then you're in this dynamic of evolving.
Yeah, one of my teachers, he teaches so beautifully the love languages peace and / needs. He says, when you need something, let's say attention, affection, it can be very healing when you give the exact that thing to the other one, but in the way they need it, not in the way you would like to receive it. And I tried it a few times, even with friends, and it was very powerful. Just to stop in that moment and say, how can I love this person, but in the way they need it? Like, I need right now some attention from them. And I stopped the story. I stopped the narrative that I'm not important and yada yada in the psyche. And I decide in that moment consciously to give this person attention, but in the way they would love to have it. It was really recommended.
And then the challenge becomes when one partner is making this effort to really understand their partner's love languages and act mindfully to serve that love language, and one partner does not, or think it's bullshit, or think it's, like that. And then you have a very complicated dynamic of giving and receiving, and yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That brings me to the question. Yeah, we do our work, and if it happens that we are stuck in relationships that is just one-sided or only one carries the weight, the question is how long you stay there and do the work, and how long can you stay so that it's not abusive towards yourself?
Yeah.
Almost.
And I think that's not only an episode, but that's probably a whole series on that topic.
We can do that. When we talk about going back to the purpose of relationships, I truly believe that relationships are meant to expand us, not to keep us where we are, basically.
Yeah.
Because if we choose to stay with someone who would make us feel, I don't know, sane, maybe, and peaceful, but we don't grow in any way. And I don't mean just, growing through pain or suffering. I mean both, because it can be both. You can grow through love as well. So that, because our needs, as you said, the unfulfilled needs from our caregivers, by our caregivers, it's our identity. This is what we identify with as grown-ups. And when we choose relationships that make us depart from that center, this is how we grow and evolve, instead of choosing someone who keeps us where we are, just to be safe, that self-preservation thing. And it takes courage. Yeah. Sorry.
I think another way of putting what I think you're saying also that, relationships are not there to make us happy. Relationships are there to make us get to know ourselves. become whole. And then with the right partner, you can then amplify your own happiness.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of circles back to where we started. I think the biggest mistake one can do in a relationship is to expect the other to make you happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see the shortcoming here. And the risk of this is that the quality of relationships that you have in your life is not going to be better in any way than the quality of relationship towards yourself.
No, exactly.
Period. So we could even end here our conversation today.
That's good.
Yeah.
And then we have a topic for next one: boundaries.
Yes, we have so many things to talk about, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Cool.
Thank you so much. This was very nourishing as usually. I hope you'll have a beautiful day ahead and speak to you next time.
Good to see you again. Take care.